Michelle Senegal, Senior Minister of the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living, and I was the minister to our beloved Frances Jeanne Barnes. On behalf of the Barnes family, welcome, and thank you all for your presence. Thank you for being here to participate in this celebration of life. And I emphasize that this is a celebration of life. So we're going to begin with prayer, the way we do everything at the Temple of Light. So I invite you to take the journey inward for just a moment. Block out everything that happened before this moment right here and right now. Go to that place of peace. Father, Mother, life. Within thee there is fullness of life. Thou art in me as I am in thee. Within thee there is complete joy, perfection, and everlasting life. So we let go of everything and we enter into the contemplation of peace and love this morning. May the peace of God be upon you, all who gather here in celebration of our beloved Jeanne Barnes, who is a begotten child of the Most High God. I'm so very grateful and so very thankful to be a part of this very special time in the lives of her family. So I release my word now unto the law of divine mind that always says yes. And my word becomes manifest right now as the perfect unfoldment of this celebration of life. And so it is. Amen. So take a deep breath, you all. And I hope you truly are ready to celebrate a life that was well lived. We're going to start in song. And the first song is Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. So sing to raise the roof.
How to love each other, lift us
remain standing, if you will, because what we're going to do now is a responsive reading. This is an inclusive ceremony. All are involved. So I will read the first stanza, and where it says response, you will respond resoundingly. Life has set the stamp of individuality on your soul. You are different from any other person that ever lived. Now, the real man is birthless, deathless, and changeless. You are you, and you are eternal. Therefore, do not wait for immortality. Death is just the passing to a higher sphere of life and action. Begin to live today as if you are an immortal being, and all thought of death, all fear of change will slip away. We are not going to attain immortality. We are now immortal. Our contention is not that the dead live again, but that the living never die. So now, let us step out of the tomb of uncertainty into the light of eternal day. And together we say, God for truth that sets us free. And so it is. Amen. You may be seated. And so now I invite Gemma McNally, the granddaughter of Jeanne Barnes, to come forward and share the first reading, 1 Corinthians 13.
If I speak in the tongues of mortals and of angels, but do not have love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give away all my possessions, and if I hand over my body so that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. Love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never ends, but as for prophecies, they will come to an end. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will come to an end. For we know only in part, and we prophesy only in part. But when the complete comes, the partial will come to an end. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became an adult, I put an end to childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, and the greatest of these is love.
And the greatest of these virtues is love. And so now I invite Tracy Barnes to the podium so she can share with you the way in which she loved her mother. In life, the only thing that's constant is change. I have an older version of the program. You probably noticed that, but I didn't notice that. So what we are going to do now, you want to go to the musical item. And so we have Pierre, Yesu, and that will be performed by Don Fuller Phillips and Faith Livingston. Is that correct? can applaud. Wasn't that lovely? And I did some research on that song. It was actually penned by Lloyd Webber. Who knew? And so now I think I'm in the right place. I'm going to invite Robin Chutkan up. She is the niece of Jeanne Barnes, and she's going to be the first with her tribute.
Thank you, Reverend Michelle. So wonderful to be here with everyone today, celebrating this marvelous woman. When I was 10, I made a decision that in the extremely unlikely event of my parents getting a divorce, if you knew my parents, you knew there was no possibility, but in the event that that happened, I was moving in with the Barnes to Up Park Camp. And here's why. Life in the Barnes household was fun. You could jump on the furniture, and if something broke, you did not get in trouble. And in fact, a new piece of furniture often arrived in its place. There were spontaneous excursions to Oxford Pharmacy for pizza on a weeknight. And most importantly, when the cousins, Jillian, Tracy, Johnny, Norman, Tanya, and I went to see a triple bill Tarzan movie at Carib, the Barnes children got actual money to buy cheese crunches. We Chutkan children, this is not a lie, had to take homemade bully beef sandwiches to the cinema. I believe in 2024 that would count as child abuse, Dad, but back then, that was life in the Barnes household. But the best part by far of being at the Barnes house was Auntie Jeanne and that incredible light she shone. And the interest she took in me as an awkward preteen, she would say, Rabinovich, which is what she called me. Come over here and let's chat. And she would listen and always never in judgment. You could feel her brilliant light shining on you. So you can imagine my shock. Come to find out that I was not the favorite niece, that they were actually multiple nieces and nephews and grandnieces and grandnephews and grandchildren, and of course her own children, who felt exactly the same way, that they were the favored one, and her law colleagues, and her colleagues from JBC, and her Temple of Light congregants. All of us felt that light, and we felt special and cherished and loved. Even if you were not a family member, you definitely felt it. Friends of her grown children, many of whom are here today, continued to come to visit Auntie Jeanne long after the grown children had moved away, because the reality is they weren't coming to see the grown children. They were coming to see Auntie Jeanne. She was great company and a gracious host. She would set a beautiful table in the backyard of her cottage, often making all the food herself. Strangers who met my aunt only once remembered her. That glamorous woman in the beautiful caftan who smelled so good and was likely tearing up the dance floor. I spoke to Auntie Jeanne on the day before she died, the Saturday. She said to me, "Child, I am having a fantastic time here in the Tony Thwaite wing. I just had a sponge bath and a cup of tea. I ate 2 fried eggs. Life is wonderful." We talked about the movie she had just seen with Tracy in Fort Lauderdale. Talk about glass half full. On the last day of her life, with a severe illness that she would not survive, her cup runneth over. Joyful, optimistic, passionate, kind, delighted by every moment of life. That's who she was. We'll miss your light, Auntie Jeanne, and we're so happy it shone so brightly on all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And so next, we'll have a representative from the Manly Law School Study Group, Garfield White.
A very pleasant good morning, despite the occasion. Today we mourn the loss of a truly special person, Jeanne. Our hearts go out to her beloved family, Johnny, Tracy, Jillian, her extended family, colleagues, and friends. The grief of losing such a remarkable soul is felt deeply by all of us. Yet knowing Jeanne should want us to focus on the celebration of her life, not just our sorrow. On behalf of her study group for University of London and the Norman Manley Law School class of 2000, it is an honor to share this tribute to her enduring spirit. We are grateful for the memories we shared and the inspiration she left behind. I spoke with Jeanne just a few days before she passed on the Saturday night of November 16. She was so upbeat, full of life and energy, that I could never have imagined the shock that would greet me when I woke up the following Monday morning to the news of her passing. It was a numb moment, one that left me struggling to get out of bed. Yet, despite the shock, I knew Jeanne wouldn't want us to indulge or wallow in her sadness. She would want us to reflect on the joy she brought into our lives. Many of us first met Jeanne around 1994 or 1995 when we enrolled in the University of London Law Program. She welcomed us with open arms, offering her home at the Ligonier Club as our study sanctuary. It became a second home for all of us, often feeling like a family gathering, with Jeanne at the helm, hosting us through endless study sessions. She determined the start times, the topics for discussion. We looked to Jeanne for every aspect of the law program. She was the tower of strength, the rock, the pillar of the study group's existence. There were moments when we wondered if we were a bother to her husband, Colonel Barnes, as we were often there from September until June, poring over textbooks, debating legal principles, and even diverting to other everyday topics at times. She was more than just another colleague. She was like a mother, an aunt, a big sister, a friend, someone who encouraged us when we felt overwhelmed, reminding us that we were all in this together and there was always a silver lining. Even when the results came in, Jeanne was there leading the celebration and inviting us to her home again for the after results get together. Jeanne's personality was infectious. Her bubbly, upbeat spirit was a constant source of light, even in stressful times. She had an extraordinary ability to turn our situation, even a tough one, into a story that would make us laugh. She always found a way to put a humorous spin on even the most mundane events, reminding us of the importance of seeing life through a lens of joy. One of her stories stands out in my mind. Jeanne's tale of meeting her late husband, Colonel Ken Barnes. When she was at university, Ken was in the military and was being sent to England for training. Jeanne was initially thrown over by the idea of him being so far away. She recalled telling her father she was going to follow Ken to England and leave university behind. Her father shockingly asked, "Are you crazy?" But Jeanne replied, "I'm in love." Her father, still doubtful about what he was hearing, repeated, "Are you crazy?" Again, Jeanne replied, "I'm in love." So I said, "Jeanne, what a gamble." Her answer I never forgot. "Garfield, what gamble? You think I was gonna make anybody take my place?" I recall the twinkle in her eyes as she relayed that story and made it seem like one fit for a Hollywood screenplay. And indeed it was, as Jeanne went on to follow her heart, and as we know, the rest is history. She and Ken were married for 49 years. Her energy, her passion, Her ageless persona and her ability to share these personal, heartfelt stories with us was part of what made her so remarkable. Jean's courage didn't stop with following her heart to England. She also followed her dreams in academia. She said when she told Ken, after her retirement, that she was going to start law, he asked her why would she want to destroy her retirement by stressing out herself with schoolwork. But she was determined to go ahead, and when she passed her first year LLB exams, Ken became her biggest cheerleader. While at the Normal Law School, some of her classmates, or even tutors, were young enough to be her grandchildren, yet she fit in seamlessly. Jeanne earned the respect of her peers, not because of her age, but because of her dedication and her humility. She never sought special treatment. She was one of us, a testament to the fact that age is just a number. At her graduation in 2000, Jeanne received a thunderous applause, and I believe she was the only one to receive a standing ovation that day. If I'm not mistaken, she was the eldest graduate from the Normal Law School up to that time. Her achievement was a beacon of hope and inspiration to all of us, proving that it's never too late to chase your dreams, no matter your age. Inevitably, it is in times like these that we often reflect on our own mortality. What is life really? Over the centuries, many great thinkers, philosophers have attempted to answer this question, yet it remains a mystery. Shakespeare in Macbeth described life as a brief candle and said it's but a walking shadow, a power player that struts and frets its hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. Confucius asked, if we don't know life, how can we know death? As death and life have their determined appointments. But what does the Bible say about life? In the New Testament, James chapter 4, verse 14, the question is asked, for what is your life? The answer, it is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away. Here we are today celebrating a life of 89 years, yet life is a vapor. So much has been said about life, but there's one common thread, that life is temporary and fleeting. So 89 years seem like an eternity. They are really only a drop in the ocean of time, but in the grand timeline of existence, they are but a brief moment. And yet, in that time, Jeanne made a monumental impact on all of us. Though we mourn the loss of Jeanne, we also celebrate the gift of life. Her spirit will live on in the countless memories she gave us, in the stories she told, in the lessons she taught us about love, joy, and perseverance. We can only hope to honor her memory by living our lives with the same energy, love, and zest for life that Jeanne did. Rest in peace, Jeanne. You're a gift to all of us.
And that's how she lived a life of passion, a life of joy. And so now, come forward. We will hear from her grandniece, Rachel Macintosh. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Macintosh. Some may know me as Kelly's daughter, others may know me as Monty's granddaughter, and some may know me as Mrs. Barnes' grandniece. My cousin Tracy told me in no uncertain terms that I have 5 minutes to give my tribute, so I'll do my best to detail my and my Auntie Jeannie's relationship and what she meant to me. Auntie Jeannie was omnipresent, so much so that speaking about her in the past tense feels surreal. No matter what the occasion was, from a larger family event to just one other person visiting her home, I'd always expect to see her in a matching head tie, jewelry, kaftan and all, expecting a kiss and hug, to which I'd always oblige. Auntie Jeannie was sharp and loved fiercely. She passed at 89, but in her head, she was really in her 50s. My parents hosted her for lunch the day before New Year's Eve in 2021. I was looking to leave teaching that year and was actively applying for jobs. Unbeknownst to her, she looked directly at me and said of me and my then workplace, "Your talent is bigger than that place. that's not the place for you, get out. On New Year's Eve, I received a shortlist email for a job that later shaped the trajectory of my professional career. Part of that email included a copywriting exercise I nearly didn't complete for fear that whatever I wrote wouldn't be good enough to land me the job. I remember what she said at that lunch and knew I couldn't dare go against my Auntie Jeanne. I completed the exercise, got the job, and began my career in marketing and advertising. Thank you, Auntie Jeanne, for believing in me and ordering me to get out. With her fantastic hospitality and unwavering love for me, Auntie Jeanne felt more like my third grandmother than my grandaunt. Fed up sitting in New Kingston's traffic evening after evening, I called her. I asked if I could use her Ligonier Club home, minutes away from my office, to change before walking around Emancipation Park, to which she joyously agreed. It became a routine. Mondays and Wednesdays, an hour around the park, Jeopardy, drive home. She marveled at how much I knew as I correctly responded to the Jeopardy categories, regularly encouraged me to go on that and win some money, and would tell everyone how good I was. She even left her house keys at the front desk before her overseas trips so I could walk while she was away. The twice weekly evening visits soon became overnight stays, 6 hours of sleep became 8 hours, and a 90-minute commute became 9 minutes. What a gift the extra sleep was, but more importantly, what a gift it was to have her in my corner and spend time with her in what turned out to be the last few months of her life. Thank you, Auntie Jeanne, for giving me a safe place to land. The Monday after she came back from what was her final overseas trip, I noticed that she looked uncharacteristically weak, to which she said to me, unprompted, "I had pneumonia, you know." I told my mother, out of concern for her age and her living alone, but I thought she'd bounce back with her trademark can-do attitude. I brought her a bottle of red wine that day, a week after her birthday, as a gift for opening her home to me, and I remember how touched she was. Watching her for another week, she seemed to grow stronger with each visit. We even ran into each other at S Food Supermarket the day she was hospitalized for the last time. Driving, at almost 90 years old, who does that? Jeanne Barnes, that's who. Auntie Jeanne remained sharp, loyal, loving, and independent to the very end. I visited her in the hospital the Saturday before she passed, and she excitedly introduced me to the other visitors, that I was her grandniece who had a corporate job and who recently won a quarterly award. The last thing she said to me was, "I'm going to leave the keys for you." Less than 48 hours later, early Monday morning while I was getting ready for work, I saw my mother walk into the kitchen, phone to her ear, and I knew Auntie Jeanne had passed before my mother ended the call. What a life, and what a woman. Auntie Jeanne, Monday and Wednesday evenings haven't felt the same since you left. Jeopardy hasn't felt the same either. How selfish of me to wish you were still here when you left on your terms. You asked me how I like the food at S Foods. It's pretty good. I especially like the fully loaded brownie, and I hope you're enjoying all the fully loaded brownies with that bottle of red wine where you are. Thank you, Auntie Jeanne, for always leaving the keys for me. Walk good. See you in the light.
Thank you so much for those words. And we're going to continue the celebration. So I'm going to ask you all to rise, and we'll sing "The King of Love My Shepherd Is." Thank you. You may be seated. And now, we'll hear from Jean's beloved daughter, Jillian, as she shares with us love for her mom.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my sister Tracy and my brother Johnny and myself, I want to thank you all for being here with us. The fact that you are all here means that my mom, Mummy, Jeanne, has touched your life in some way. And today, we're here, as Reverend Michelle said, and I think all of you will feel, not to celebrate her passing, not to feel sad for ourselves, although it's hard not to, but really to celebrate the joy and the love that she had for all of us. She loved everybody. You know that. You've heard that before. Regardless of whether you met her one time, whether she met you one time, the first time she met you, you felt that love. Old, young, whoever. And that love was manifest not just in words, but the things she did for people. You know, my mother would, you know, as her children, you know, we thought, well, why is she driving out to Bull Bay every Friday to take Michelle groceries and give her money? And, you know, who is Michelle? Michelle was a former client of my mom's. Intellectually challenged. My mom did a case for her. It's probably been 20 years, but you know, that's, you know, once a client of my mom's, always a client, no matter how much time passed. Michelle's family didn't treat her very well, and my mom took it upon herself. She was going to be Michelle's mother. She enrolled her in literacy classes, enrolled her in painting classes. Every year on her birthday, she booked a room at a hotel for her to stay and have a little treat. Took her to the hospital if needed, and basically supported Michelle for the last 20 years, right up until the end of her life. You know, my mom, she believed in the goodness of everyone. She believed in the potential of everyone. You know, while I was, it's been 9 years since I've been here. And being in my mother's house without her, you know, was so surreal, so strange. You know, I rummaged through her closets. I rummaged through her jewelry drawers. I rummaged through her purse, very much like I did as a child. But she did not have her watchful eye on me, I don't think. I occasionally looked over my shoulder just to see. And I was trying to get a sense, you know, most of the times when I've seen her, she's been in Florida, on our territory, not in her own space, her own home. And so being there, just trying to soak in her essence, you know, which was large and boundless. And in my searching, I found this notebook. And it has her writing in it from a relatively recent time. You know, my mother, you know, was part of being a believer in science of mind. The mind, your consciousness was paramount. That allowed us to be fully human, our sense of ourselves, our ability to choose. Those are the things that were unique to us as humans, and she saw them as being the most important things. We absorbed those lessons as children. We never went with her to the Temple of Light or any of her science of mind, but the lessons that she imparted to us, very same lessons I'm sure she imparted to all of you. You probably took them in much more readily than we did as her children, because you know how children are, they have to find their own way. But she saw herself and all of us as perfect in the image of God. And she always told us, regardless of what ailment, regardless of what we were going through, you were perfect and everything will be okay. That being said, you could improve on perfection as far as Jeanne Barnes was concerned. There was always room for improvement. She made some notes about things she was to eat. 2022, at the age of 87, she is looking to improve her life. She wanted to be healthier. Could she be any more healthy, any more vibrant? She made a list of things she was supposed to eat. And I get the sense, all the things she normally ate. And then I saw part of it, the things she was supposed to avoid. Well, I know that's why the list ended there. All her favorite foods: cheese, butter, ice cream, fried foods. I think, as she did in life always, she took the best of everything that was out there that worked for her and moved on with life. Everybody talks about how much my mom loved everybody. She loved people, she loved life, she loved food, she loved music. Those were her 4 great passions in life, and she expressed those fully, daily. But with people, she especially had a place in her heart for children, young people. You heard Rachel talk about it. She really wanted young people to understand, and she did that with us, her own children, wanted us to understand that our imagination would unlock the keys to boundless gifts and joy and happiness and love. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it. You just needed to do the work, and you needed to be determined. And you know, Jeanne Barnes was a determined woman. Whatever she set out to do, she did. She decided she was going to be a lawyer at an age when most people were looking to put their feet up and relax and enjoy their retirement. And she did it. What a fantastic role model. But it also happened in very small things as well. You know, every time she came up to Florida to stay with Tracy, I would drive over from the west coast of Florida and spend time with her. And she had a list, always. Even if she'd only been in the States 2 months before, she had a new list of gifts that she had to get for her people. The gardener, the man who helps her park the car at John R. Wong's supermarket, the man who cleans shoes, the people at Ligony Club who so loved her and took such good care of her, Victor, the people who came and helped in her apartment. She always had to go and get something for them. Now, if you know my mother, you know that she's somewhat on the frugal side. That's to put it mildly. And I have to say, I've followed in her footsteps, so I come by my frugality honestly. But most of her visits involved a trip to the Dollar Tree, her favorite store. And my sister, of course, was always busy with the government's work, much more important things. I was on holiday, and so I was her chauffeur, ferrying her this Dollar Tree and that one. Okay, well, I've got this one, I've got Germaine, I have to get some extra large pants for Michelle. She knew their names, and she had in her mind what she wanted to get them. For herself, it was really just the red pants. If you know, she loved red. She had a red top, and she wanted to find a pair of pants to match. Not just any red. It's a very specific shade of red. And she went everywhere with this top, going to all the stores, Ross, TJ Maxx, Macy's, trying to match this pair of red pants. My sister, of course, was like, Jillian, really, why? Just, why are you indulging her? But I'm the eldest child of an eldest child. And anything my mother wanted, I was happy to do for her. Because in turn, anything that we wanted, she was happy to do for us. Of course, Jeanne Barnes set out to find the perfect pair of red pants, and you know she did. They're in her closet. And so in rummaging through her closet a couple days ago, I saw the top, and I said, there were like 3 pairs of red pants. It's like Goldilocks. Oh, this one's a bit too bright. This one's a bit too the perfect shade of red, the perfect pair of red pants. Unfortunately, I don't think she had a chance to wear them, but I know that in her mind, all that mattered, mission accomplished. My mother was mission-driven and focused. Whatever it was she wanted to do, small, large, if she wanted to see someone, if she wanted to impart some words of wisdom, if she wanted to visit someone, didn't matter what it would cost to us to drive her 20 miles, outside of Fort Lauderdale to go and see someone she had said she was going to see. If she said she was going to do it, she did it. And that was a fantastic, fantastic lesson for us. My mother worked all her life, worked all our lives, up until almost the day she passed. She was working. She had filed. She claimed she was retired, but we all know better than that. That Jeanne Barnes did not let any moss grow under her feet. In addition to loving people, loving all of us, children especially, she loved food. She was a real, what my dad used to call, she's a taste buds woman. The taste of the food, that's the flavors. She was a picky eater, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things she didn't like, but the foods that she did like, Italian food especially, she loved. She was a fantastic cook, and I'm almost certain every single person in here has sampled Jeanne Barnes' cooking. Soup on Saturday, pasta salad, salad at the Temple of Light on Sundays, that we have all been nourished by Jeanne Barnes' food and Jeanne Barnes' love. And I think her greatest love, she loved us as children, yes, she did. But what she really, really loved was music and dancing, that she loved to dance. I would call midnight. Hi, Mom, what you doing? Late? She was a night owl like me. Oh, I'm listening to some Brazilian music here on YouTube. Oh, this samba, it's just wonderful. I'm in heaven. We heard that a lot. She's in heaven. Right here, she's in heaven. She would visit my sister Tracy, sleeping late in bed, meaning till 8 o'clock. Television in her room, endless YouTube. She is in heaven. When she came to my house, I didn't hear that as much, but, I didn't have YouTube in bed. But music and dancing, if she couldn't dance, if she couldn't enjoy music, if she couldn't enjoy food, I think in her mind, there was really no point in continuing. And I think in her last days, as her taste buds failed and she was not able to enjoy her food as much, I think that really put a damper on things for her. And she continued dancing, right, enjoying her music, but it's possible because Jeanne Barnes knew everything. She knew the beginning, she knew the middle, she knew the end. She was immortal, in her words. She was going to live forever. She insisted, I'm going to live forever. And she always did what she set out to do. In closing, I see my sister looking at me, looking daggers. In closing, I wrote a little poem. My mom was not big on poetry. I wrote a poem for my dad. I wrote a poem for her. I think she'll enjoy it. That's a poem for my mother. Why cry? It's not what you'd have wanted. You would have said, get over it. It's time to move on, my darlings. Get on with your lives. Enjoy the next phase of this adventure. And so, Mom, you left us. Here 1 minute, gone the next. I am sure it was your choice. You danced right out of this earthly plane. A quick little samba, or maybe a bossa nova, right into eternity. And now, my sweet mother, you're dancing with the angels. Dance on. Dance on, dance on, forever and ever and ever. Thank you.
Wow, if you didn't have a deep sense of who Jeanne Barnes was or is, you do now. Thank you for that journey. And I invite John Barnes to come forward so that he can share a little of the love that he had for his mom.
Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone for being here. We all obviously loved my mother immensely, and I'd like to thank the first few speakers for sticking to the time, because I thought that I was going to be the longest talker. But after the daggers that Tracy has been throwing at Jillian, I think that I better hurry up and get on with it. But I will let you know, Tracy, when my 10 minutes starts. It hasn't started yet, okay? I will let you know when it starts. Now, we've been talking about Frances Jeanne Barnes, and of course, I'd like to welcome the Barneses from Trinidad who are here. But if anybody knows my mother, everybody will know, and I can see lots of her relatives here, notwithstanding the Barneses, that she was a hill. Now, until you understand the context of the hills, you will not understand Jeanne Barnes. I've got my daughter here with me, who did a beautiful reading, and in fact, she has on the very dress that my mother had on at her wedding about 2 or 3 years ago. I've got 7 children. Please don't ask me how long, what date, because the hill likes details. It was 2 or 3 years ago, I'm sure. So you have to understand the hills. And my daughter is here to represent my other children who are there in England because they find the hills fascinating. First of all, Frances Jeanne Barnes. They say to me, why is she called Jeanne if her name's Frances? I said, well, because her mother and father named her. Did they say, you mean her father Francis? Named her Francis. Oh, and yes, but it's an E. So it's not France, it's not I, so that's what they do. And then her little brother is also here Francis. So there's another Francis. And there are Francises and Monicas. So to understand the hills, you see where it started. She's now the matriarch of the hills. Carrying on in the fashion will be Jillian, Tracy, Robin, and Tanya. We also have Kelly. We also have some of the younger ones who obviously by the time we moved over, they were coming through. But it is a matriarchal line, the Hill family. You have to understand the Hill women, as Norman and I understand perfectly, which is why we live thousands of miles away from them. I'm starting now, Tracy. Obviously, this is a celebration of Frances Jeanne Barnes. It's not to be mourned, it's to be celebrated. Because most people live their best lives, as my children tell me, up until the age of 60. My mother lived her best life starting at the age of 60. Because once in England we have a saying about the handbrake, someone who can keep her under control. And once her prince, Colonel Roderick Kendrick Benedict Brinsley Barnes, left us, she was off. No one could control Frances Jeanne Barnes. My children find her fascinating. There are lots of great people throughout history. And when you think about people throughout history, particularly a long time ago, you think, could they have been that great? Could they have been that great? You've got, Boudicca, you have Cleopatra. You hear about these great people you read in history, and we all know that people are the same. So some are a little bit greater than others. But when you talk about a great woman who put her mind to do something, she will do it. And if she had to be in any period of time, in any circumstance, be it war, be it love, be it passion, she would be at the forefront. She lived her life to the fullest. She found excitement in everything. When she got older and she was never by herself, she was with herself. There are certain people who like to be with people, certain people who like to be alone. I think I'm a bit of a loner, but we like people sometimes. She would have the most exciting time with 100 people, or she'll have the most exciting time with no one. When she came to stay with us in England, and my children would come down and hear noise at 2 o'clock in the morning, they'd come down and because she discovered YouTube. And once she discovered YouTube, that was it. There would be music, she would be cooking, she'd be dancing up until 2 and 3 in the morning. She had an incredible impact on my life because as much as Tracy and Jillian spoke about the impact she had on our lives, there was one of the children who she didn't love anymore, but she had more of a worry for, and that was little Johnny. So as long as I can remember, she would have me up, even when I was living in Jamaica before I went to school at 6 o'clock in the morning, talking about putting positive images into my head, talking about being spiritual and science of the mind, and you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Ever since I was 6 years old. Just me, by the way, because I think she worried about me. So of course, when we went to England, and then 4 years later, I'm 17 years old, and I'm now going to come back with them. I've got offered a scholarship to Howard University. I'm going to come back to Jamaica with my family at 17 years old, and an opportunity came for me to be a professional footballer. She said, you're staying here, because that's what you're going to do. I don't know whether she's actually had that much faith in me, or she thought you can't do anything else, but you're staying here. And that's the best decision that she actually made for my life. I see life as a duality in terms of spirituality, in terms of humanness, and we've heard about Jeanne and her spirituality, and how she had lots of humility, empathy. She was just such a loving person. But she also imparted on me, particularly when she used to speak to me for hours and hours, that we have to live in this world. So as much as we're spiritual, we're also human. So not only do we have to be forgiving, we have to be not only understanding, but we also have to live our lives as human beings, as well as having spirituality in our lives. And she could do both, because when you wanted someone to be human, because we spoke about how loving she was, I don't know if anyone here has ever experienced the wrath of Jeanne Barnes. Now, I think people were afraid. The first speakers were probably afraid to say it, but we know. We know you do not get on her wrong side. You do not get on her wrong side. It's appropriate that we're here in the JDF because I was brought up here till I was 12 years old. And of course, from an army perspective, you talk about it, we've got Colonel Ogilvy who understands strategy. Jeanne was a strategist. If you know Sun Tzu, the art of war, it's about knowing when to attack, when to defend, when to retreat, how to win when you've lost. That was Mummy. Mummy wouldn't lose because she knows how to operate in this world as well as in the spiritual world. You have a lot of people who just talk about spirituality. She says we have to live in this world as well. So if we have to get by, this is what we do. So of course she became a lawyer. And when she decided to become a lawyer, of course, we entertained the idea. Here she's at 67, 68, it's fine. Let her pretend. Let her give her something to do. Daddy was sick, let her give her something to do. She would come up to England and she would, when she's in England, she would study. And the studying comprised of her 2 o'clock in the morning, having a brandy, having the books open, looking at the books for 5 minutes, drinking her brandy, falling asleep. I'd come down in the morning, see the book on her chest, and saying, ah, look at her, isn't that lovely? Put a little cover over her. This went on for a long period of time. Then she passed. I think it must have been through osmosis. I don't remember her reading a book. That book must have gone into her. But she would achieve. Mummy would achieve. Then I would listen to her on the phone and what's the name of the girl, Tracy? I know you shouldn't be involved. The girl who she used to go and see? Michelle. I also like to apologize to Michelle. Michelle, if you're watching, I have to apologize because Jillian gave out all your business that you wear extra large red pants. I didn't think she needed to say that, but Michelle and her extra large. Medium, Michelle, it was medium. And I would listen to Mummy speaking to what I thought, because at first, I have to admit, when I first heard Mummy speaking to her, the people who she represented, I thought she was actually representing the prosecution. Because Mummy's thing is being truthful. Now, we know as a lawyer, and I've got many lawyers in the family, you know that they're guilty or they're lying, but you don't want them to tell you. You have to go through this charade of pretending. Mummy doesn't parade. She doesn't pretend. I would listen to Mummy shouting at this woman or man, saying, you're guilty, you're thief, they should lock you up. I said, Mummy, are you prosecuting this woman? She goes, no, I'm defending her, but she has to know. She has to know. Mummy doesn't like people who are not honest. And we know we have to go through this game, but she doesn't play that game. Up until her honesty is her biggest thing. Up until, as Jamie said, the last hours of her life, she was saying to the nurse, what would we say if we want to go home? We would say, I'm feeling better, let me go home. Not Mummy. She says, I want to go home because I'm not feeling well. Because you have to know that I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm doing what I want to do, but I'm not telling you any lies. We wanted her to come and live with us in England. And we went through the process of trying to fill in the immigration forms and going through the process of she had to go to an interview, which is online. She's not speaking to anyone. And the interview had to be, yes, she was about 84 at the time. I'm 84 years old. My daughters live in America. My son lives in England. He's got children. I want to be close to the grandchildren. To be lovely if I could come up to England. My father my husband went to Sandhurst. Blah, blah, blah. And then she had to say that I'm 84 years old, I'm getting on a bit, and I'm finding it difficult to cope. Do you know Jeanne Barnes? She's not saying that. When Mummy, this woman, it's a computer, she does not know you. You just have to fit it in. I am not saying that. She does not want anyone to know she can't cope. So up until the last time she visited, as she comes off the plane, you can't even carry her bag. You cannot help her in any way, shape, or form. She loves to help old people. The old people she loves to help because they're too old and frail and can't manage in life are all 10 years younger than her. Yeah? All 10 years younger than her. So my children, I'm not going to be much longer, Trace. I can feel the eyes burning in the back of my neck. My children also, and I'm blaming them, they all wanted to give a little tribute about memories of Grandma. So I'm just going to give you a few memories of Grandma. I'll start off with myself being in England. And my wife will tell you who's here, Andrea. In fact, I'll start off with my wife, Andrea. My wife, Andrea, she loves Christmas. She loves Christmas. And at Christmas time, I can say this, she spoils the children. So she buys them lots of presents. Lots of presents. And these presents aren't big presents, but it's nothing to wrap up. And then, something for the kids to open. Now, of course, growing up in Jamaica, we didn't really celebrate. Yeah, we had presents, but that wasn't a big thing. But Andrea loves presents. So there she is with her mother-in-law, and I'm sitting there with them. Mummy's there, Andrea's wrapping up presents. Lots of presents. And I can see Mummy, because as you said, Mummy's very frugal, and she believes everybody else should be frugal. So as she's looking at Andrew open these presents, wrapping these presents, Christmas music is on, I can tell what's happening. So I said, I'm leaving. Mommy doesn't say a word. There is Andrea wrapping up these presents. The Christmas music is on. England is lovely, snowy. There's Grandma, and she's looking at her, not saying a word for hours. Not saying a word. All of a sudden, Jeanne gets up, and when Mommy wants you to know something, she wants you to know, but not know where it came from. You have to figure it out yourself. Come closer to the mic? Okay. I thought it was very close. Stop. Closer to the mic. Okay, thank you. So, Tracy, that was not my time. That was his time. So, of course, as Mommy is looking at Andrea wrapping these presents, she walks out of the room quietly under her breath. And Andrea's listening to the Christmas music. Everything is nice. There's her mother-in-law. And as she walks out of the room, under her breath, just loud enough for you to hear, but did you hear? She says, ceiling on desires. Ceiling on desires. That was my mother's term. You have to put a ceiling on your desires when you want too much. And Andrea thinks that she doesn't know where that comes from. So that's Mommy, ceiling on desires. Our daughter, Isabella, got a boyfriend. And Mommy has a way of letting you know and telling you something, and which could possibly be deemed an insult, but the way she says it, it's not an insult. It's a fact, and you shall learn from this. So she's helping you. If she's going to criticize you, she's helping you. So Aidan, her boyfriend, lovely boy, first boyfriend. Imagine, 16 years old, you got your first boyfriend, you love your grandmother, you're telling him about Aidan. Aidan comes, meets Grandma, and after Aidan leaves, she says, Grandma, what do you think about Aidan? She said, he's a lovely boy. He is a lovely boy. He's so kind, he's so sweet. Was his father short? No, of course. After he's so lovely and sweet, it's like, oh, where does that come from? And he's really lovely, and you really don't want a good-looking boyfriend for your first boyfriend. These are the things she says to him. So, of course, my other daughter, Tia, 16 years old, she should have a boyfriend, as Grandma tells her. She should have a boyfriend. But her boyfriend, her first boyfriend, should be at least 10 years older than her. And I'm thinking, Mommy, what kind of upbringing did you have for my 16-year-old daughter to have a 26-year-old boyfriend? But she imparts her wisdom, and she is as honest as the day is long. I never answer the phone to my mother. When I see my mother ringing, I let it ring. I go to get intel on everybody. I do the same thing for you two, Jillian and Tracy, because she's going to ask you questions that you don't have the answer to. Because she loves people. She wants to know what's going on, what the children are going on, what they had for dinner, what they blah. So I then don't answer the phone. I phone around, ask the kids when their birthdays are, ask them what their middle names are, ask them everything. Then I'll phone Mommy back with all the answers. So then pick her up at the airport. And this, as my wife will tell you, is my biggest love, why I love my mother. Because Mommy, I don't know if you've ever been in a car with her, the first thing she says when she gets off the plane in Manchester, she goes, John, it's lovely to see you, kids are okay. What's the speed limit in England? I've not even got in the car yet, because she's telling me, don't go too fast. But because I am also a hill, we will get into this confrontation if she wants to talk to me in the way that I would speak to the rest of them as they know. But she knows how to do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, why are you going this way? I said, Mommy, Manchester Airport is on the highway. This is the only way to go to my house. You didn't come this way last time. It is impossible to go from Manchester to Liverpool without going on the motorway. You took a different route last time. Now, I've had to calm myself down because I'm a hill, let me tell you, and so is Tracy. Jillian, not so much. She's a Barnes. Tanya's a hill, Robin's a hill, Norman's a Chutkan. You get in the gist. So therefore, as much as we love her, we clash. So she now comes home. And it was Christmas. We had this fireplace built. Beautiful log wood fireplace built. She hadn't seen it before because we had built it that year. She came, she looked at it. There are the logs, it's a fireplace, but it's a modern fireplace, so it doesn't look like a log fire, but it's a log fire because there are the logs, it's a log fire. She says, is this a gas fire? I said, no, Mommy, it's logs. She goes, it looks like gas to me. Now, being a hill, I can't let that lie. This is the summer. I have to go and get the logs to show her. It's gas as well. I then have to light the logs just to prove, because I'm a hill. We have to prove I'm right. So I've lit it. And she just walks away and says, it's gas as well. And she walks off. So, this is my life of Mummy coming. And everybody would have experienced this. We heard from some of her colleagues from the legal profession. And one day when she came to England, and I have to ask these people if this is true, and whether they have something called legal papers. Legal papers, I'm not talking about what's on the paper, I'm talking about the shape and size of the paper. Don't be nodding your heads saying it's true. No, because it doesn't exist anymore. But Mummy is convinced that these legal papers are still used. So she pulls out of her handbag this scroll looking like the Magna Carta. I've heard of A4, A5, A6, this is A23.5. It's that long and that thin. And Mummy, straight off the plane, right, I've got to get legal papers. I said, Mummy, I don't think this exists. She goes, no, it doesn't exist. Let's go to a computer shop. So very much like Tracy, traveling around everywhere, we go to the first computer shop. Excuse me, legal papers. We need some legal papers. I've got to send this. The man says, I don't think they use that anymore in England. What do you mean? Of course they use it. Of course they use it. We use it in Jamaica, a colony of England. England was the motherland. This was done from 1872. These are the legal papers. There it is, looking like the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the man has got every computer under the sun. It's not going to fit into any of these. And I'm saying, Mummy, just cut it down. No. So we traipse around for these legal papers. Couldn't find the legal papers anywhere. I was just in America, and if I had time, Tracy would have taken me to find the legal papers, because America was a colony of England until 1776, so all of the legal papers in England and America, worldwide, this is it. So eventually we couldn't find the legal papers. So eventually, she just went, I'll cut it down. When I told Tracy this story, Tracy said she was here a month ago, the exact same thing, traipsing around Fort Lauderdale, Florida, looking for legal papers. That is Mummy. I'm not going to leave it much longer, because obviously I'm trying to cut the stories down, Trace, that's why I'm looking at this, because there are too many to mention. But she really was a wonderful woman who is not with us anymore. But as she went out on her own terms, she's also going to decide where to go on her own terms. She's obviously going to meet her prince, Ken, but she's going to decide where she goes, because my mother is not one of convention. My mother knows the right thing to do. She knows the right way to be. She knows the right way for us to be. And if she has to tell you, without you knowing, and in no uncertain terms, that this is what you should be doing, no matter how much it hurts, she does it with the right intention and with the right morality. Now she will decide where she goes. But she is not a conventional person. Because we all think, particularly the other day like this, being in this place that we are, that we all want to go where the convention says we should. But my mother will have to see first. She has to see first. She does nothing without tasting and without experiencing. So when she's there in that line and she gets to the front and she's invited to where we think she should go, and come on in, your husband's waiting for you, she will have to see what the other place is like first, because that might be better. We all know it's not going to be, Mummy, please, it's not, but she has to see for herself. So she says, I'll be back in a minute, now I've got my entrance. I'm still not telling them I'm frail and old and can't cope, but I'll be back in a minute. So she goes to that other place that shall not be spoken about, but she wants to see it for herself. And as she goes to have a little look, and there are flames everywhere, and it's hot, she's in the queue. She gets to the front, and they've asked her name. She'll say, before I tell you my name, I want to know something first. Is this wood or gas? And then she goes. Thank you.
Oh, the many dimensions of Frances Jeanne Barnes. And so now we're going to hear from the Barnes Trenny family, and it will be read by Sha Barnes, her nephew. Welcome.
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you for all of you who have come here to give your last respects to my beautiful Auntie Jeanne. That is how I called her, Auntie Jeanne. And I represent the Trini side of the family. So Ken was a Trinidadian, and Ken's brother was my father. And so we grew up going to Auntie Jeanne's and Uncle Ken's. And what I remember is spending the whole Saturday at Auntie Jeanne and Uncle Ken's house. We would go to see movies, those times back in the day when you could see 3 movies back to back. And then my parents would come and pick me up at nighttime. And as we say in Trini, it was a Trini lime, a whole day Trini lime. On behalf of my family, my mother Sandra, my sister Natasha, my brother Andrew, my wife Robin, my son Jeremy, and my daughter Gabrielle, we wish all of you our deepest condolences. We are going to miss Auntie Jeanne tremendously. So I have a Barnes Trini family tribute to read. And it says, the Trini Barnes are deeply saddened by the death of their dearest sister, Jeanne. Upon her marriage to Ken Barnes, Jeanne became a beloved sister of the Trinidad Barnes family. We all loved her. We loved her vivacious spirit and her strong, optimistic character. Trinidadians who met her found her beautiful, and the family felt that Ken had lucked out. He did. Jeanne made such an indelible impression on the family that 2 of Ken's brothers followed him and also married Jamaican women. My father was one of them. These marriages, apparently influenced by Jeanne, led to beautiful relationships between Trinidad and Jamaica. We in Trinidad saw Jeanne as a Trinidadian. She loved things Trinidadian. She enjoyed the calypso, was mesmerized by carnival, and found steel band music to be one of the most wonderful experiences in the world. A few weeks ago, she called us in Trinidad, and she said she was dancing to All Stars Steel Band. And it was just so fantastic. And we didn't know what we had in Trinidad. She ended the conversation by promising she was coming for Carnival next year. That was jubilant Jeanne, blessed with a great appreciation and enjoyment for all art forms. Jeanne and Ken's home became a home away from home for many of us. We spent Christmas holidays there, and Jeanne always had lovely meals prepared. She enjoyed having family and visitors. There are so many Trinidadians who visited Jamaica and said, "Oh, I saw Jeanne and Ken." Even young family members who left Trinidad to study at the university in Jamaica, their home became a refuge for them. Jeanne encouraged them and made them aware of their resilience. Her words and the life she modeled made them the professors and doctors in the family today. Here's a precious memory from Ken's youngest brother, Ian, and his wife, Hilma, on their relationship with Jeanne and Ken. Ian had never left Trinidad, and at the age of 21, he went to study at the University of the West Indies at Mona. Having a family in Jamaica was comforting to him. Jeanne was warm and welcoming, and he felt at home. When Hilma met Ian, her future husband, Ken and Jeanne were the first members of the extended Barnes family that she got to know. Their warm, kind, and welcoming interaction made her realize that she was being embraced into a very special family. Unlike Jeanne, upon her marriage to Ian, Hilma moved to Trinidad and became the real Trini. Wherever Ian and Hilma visited Jamaica to see Hilma's family, seeing Ken and Jeanne and their children was always something special to look forward to. Hilma loved Jeanne's easygoing, sincere, and entertaining personality. A few years ago, Jeanne visited Trinidad, and Hilma to this day holds that as a precious memory. Today we say goodbye to Jeanne. No, not goodbye, but a sincere thank you from our hearts. We love you and are so grateful for you, Jeanne, for your love for life, for marrying Ken, and for your kindness, for all the good that you did. May we be inspired to follow your many examples of unconditional love. Thank you, our sister. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And delayed but not forgotten, a scripture reading by the brother of Frances Jeanne Barnes, Francis Hill. Would you come forward, please?
Here begins the word of God. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. What profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men, to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. Also, he hath set the world in their heart, so that no man can find out the work that God maketh from the beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the labor of all his labor. It is the gift of God. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. And God doeth it, that men should fear before him. That which hath been is now, and that which is to be hath already been seen, and God requireth that which is past. Here ends the word of the Lord.
So you should be ready and prepared because I introduced you before. But now is your time, Tracy. Come forward, please, and share your memory of your mom.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm just going to share a somewhat brief remembrance of my mother. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good sound? Thank you. Frances Jeanne Barnes was born on October 28, 1935, the firstborn child of Frank and Monica Hill. She was always known as Jeanne, except to some of her father's family who called her Fanny, and to her sister Monzi, her husband Nesta, and their children who called her Jeannie. And others called her Jeannie too, but she was Jeanne to most people. She received her secondary education first at Immaculate Conception High, then at Montego Bay High School when the family briefly moved to Montego Bay, and finally at Convent of Mercy Alpha Academy, where she successfully completed her senior Cambridge and higher school exams and was admitted to the University of the West Indies. I believe she was supposed to be studying Spanish at UWI, and I think she herself wasn't sure what she was supposed to be studying, because she explained to us when we were older that she had really wanted to study law, but as this was not offered at UWI in those days, she chose Spanish. However, due to her lack of dedication to studying Spanish, after about 2 years, when she pretty much extracted as much fun as she could out of her university experience, including becoming campus queen, despite the heartbreak that it caused her father, Frank, she dropped out of the university. The primary importance of her UWI experience, though, was that one of her closest friends was a Trinidadian named Margaret Sturge, who had grown up in Trinidad with one Kenrick Barnes. And when the said Kenrick Barnes arrived in Jamaica from Trinidad in 1956 to join the Jamaica Regiment, the only person he knew was Margaret Sturge, who lost no time introducing him to her friend Jeanne. And the rest, as they say, is history. In very short order, they were an item. Their personalities, as those who know both of them, were actually quite dissimilar. Mom was vivacious and outgoing and loved a party, while Dad was much more introverted and reserved and thought parties were things to be suffered through. But I believed her vivacity is what attracted him to her, and for her part, she declared that she thought Ken was the most handsome man on the face of the earth. However, within 2 years of their meeting and the start of their relationship, Dad was admitted to the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst, and he set off for England. By that time, the relationship was so serious, however, and Garfield White already told you about her reaction to the prospect of letting him go to England without her, that she decided that she was not going to let him out of her sight for any length of time, and she soon followed him to England, lodging with family friends in London while working at the West Indies Welfare Office, and they would see each other when he got weekend leaves from Sandhurst. He graduated from Sandhurst in 1960, and a few weeks later, on July 23rd, they were married in a small Catholic church in Swiss Cottage, with only a handful of people in attendance. Soon thereafter, they returned to Jamaica, where my father became a lieutenant in the West India Regiment, which became the Jamaica Defense Force in August 1962, when Jamaica became independent. Their first child, Jillian, was born in May 1961, followed by me 18 months later, and then Johnny a year after that. On returning to Jamaica in 1961, Mom worked as a broadcaster at the Jamaica Broadcasting Corporation, and after a few years went on to become a television producer at the Jamaica Information Service, JIS. Folks of a certain age here may remember a television program called Life with the Littles, and that was one of her productions. I believe that television production was her real passion, even though, as you'll hear, she went on to many other types of employment. I do, however, have one quibble about her time at JIS, and this has to do with her failure to get the three of us onto Romper Room. Despite her never-ending pleas and requests, she never arranged this for us. Truth be told, we were three very high-spirited, rambunctious children, and she no doubt realized that we were not romper room material and would likely bring shame on the family by our behavior, not to mention damage her relationship with her colleague, Erica Allen, who, if I recall correctly, was the romper room host. But we were bitterly disappointed by her inaction in that regard, especially when our friends from Apart Camp, Yolanda and Eddie Lloyd, made it onto romper room despite lacking the JIS connections that we had. In 1973, the powers that be determined that her talents would be more productively used at the Ministry of Labor, which was the start of her career in industrial relations. She was not happy about this move, yet as she do time and time again, she threw herself wholeheartedly into this and became so adept in this field that after about 18 months, she became the Industrial Relations Officer for the telephone company, as it was then called. But this too was relatively short-lived, as in 1976, the powers that be then turned their attention to my father, and decided that his talents were better utilized as military attaché in London. So in January 1976, the Barnes family moved to London, where we remained until the summer of 1981. For the majority of that time, Mom worked for Air Jamaica as a reservations agent. Again, not something that she had any particular training, interest, or aptitude for, but she went off to work happily every day and formed cordial and long-lasting relationships with all of her fellow employees, some of which I see here today. On our return to Jamaica, she worked at the National Heritage Trust, the Creative Production and Training Center, CPTC, which brought her back to her beloved television production, and she was in fact the managing director of CPTC from 1987 to 1990. And finally, in terms of her life of public service, she ended her public service career at the National Drug Abuse Secretariat. She retired from public service at age 60 and lost no time in embarking on the second phase of her professional life. To our surprise, as you've heard earlier, she announced that she was enrolling as an external student with London University to pursue a Bachelor of Laws degree. Finally, she was going to pursue the course of study she'd wanted to do when she was 18 years old. She obtained her LLB degree 3 years later, and then was admitted to the Norman Manley Law School, obtaining her certificate of legal education 2 years after that, and becoming a full-fledged attorney at law at the youthful age of 65. Most of her professional life as a lawyer was spent at the Kingston Legal Aid Clinic as a criminal lawyer practicing in the RM Court, and she actually rose to becoming the acting executive director of that organization, a position she held for quite a few years. She felt very strongly that people of modest means should have access to good quality legal services. Mom became widowed in February of 2009 when her beloved father died. She was 73 at the time. Many women of that age with no children nearby, as Jillian, Jeanne, and I were all living abroad, might have floundered, finding themselves widowed at 73. But she didn't flounder. Yes, she missed her father and would always miss him, but she continued to flourish in her life. About 2 years into her widowhood, she moved from the matrimonial home on Montrose Road to Cottage 6 Ligony Club, which she absolutely loved and which remained her home until her passing in November of this year. Her home was a constant hive of activity with a steady stream of visitors, both young and old, stopping by to visit her. My siblings and I constantly remarked on her social life, thinking that it was far more vibrant and active than ours. Many a night we'd call to check on her to be met with, "I can't speak with you now, I have company. I'll call you later." And she frequently remarked to us, "My dance card is very full this week. On Friday I'm going here, then on Saturday I'm doing this, and then on Sunday this is happening." She finally retired from active legal practice earlier this year, although she still maintained a very small civil practice up until her passing. But she was quite bemused by the experience of suddenly having more free time on her hands than she was used to. And I would try and reassure her that she wasn't turning whatless by saying, "Mom, most people started living like this when they were 20 years younger than you are now." I think she actually enjoyed having more free time, but felt somewhat guilty about it, having spent all of her adult life going full speed ahead with work. So that is the biographical stuff about my mother. And actually there's much more, because I didn't mention, and as I reminded this morning, that she was on various committees like the Port Royal Development Commission, the Devon House Committee, and various other committees. Hello? Okay. At 89, she still had a zest for life that was equal to that of a 4-year-old. She awoke early every morning, excited for the possibilities, experiences, and adventures that lay ahead. As people have attested earlier, she had many loves and passions. She loved opera. Her favorite was Il Trovatore, followed by Tosca. She loved music of all kinds. You've heard that she lived on YouTube. Woe betide anyone who came to visit when she was on YouTube, as like it or not, they would be forced to join her in whatever musical odyssey she was embarking on, or it could be looking at a ballet or listening to a nutritionist talk about what kind of diet will guarantee a long and healthy life. Jillian and I frequently worried that she wasn't getting enough sleep. We'd end our nightly calls with her by saying, "No, don't stay up all night looking at YouTube, you know." And the following day's call would begin with, "How did you sleep last night? You didn't stay up all night on YouTube, did you?" She loved good food. As Jillian said, she was rather a frugal person, but felt that the only thing worth splurging on was good quality food. She would rather go hungry than have a subpar meal. She loved to cook and feed people. She was the best extemporaneous cook I knew. If a few people descended on her unexpectedly, as frequently happened, she'd disappear from the gathering for 10 minutes and reappear with the most fantastic food that she just whipped up to feed them all. She loved wine, but it didn't need to be expensive, though her favorite was Chablis, a nice dry white wine. She enjoyed brandy, and again, didn't need to be expensive. She loved to dance, especially to soca. She was more Trinidadian than my father in this regard. A party was not a party unless there was dancing. If she was invited to a party where she suspected there was not going to be dancing, she proclaimed that she was going to bring her records to ensure that there was music to dance to. She loved kaftans, the more colorful the better. She loved perfume. She didn't consider herself fully dressed without perfume. She would literally bathe in it. Like the wine, it didn't need to be expensive. When she entered a room, her beautiful fragrance filled the space and remained there after she left. She loved helping people, and she had no boundaries in that regard. The word no was not in her vocabulary. Virtually all requests for help were acceded to once she was physically able to do it. She was the most selfless person I've ever known and frequently put others' needs ahead of her own, which was again a source of concern to us, her children. She loved giving presents. The idea of showing up empty-handed when she came to visit was unthinkable to her. Likewise, when she came to visit me in Fort Lauderdale, it seemed to me that most of the visit was spent shopping for presents to take back to Jamaica. When she worked at the Legal Aid Clinic, she had to take something for all the employees there. She also took gifts for the cashiers at the supermarket that she shopped at John R. Wong, and for the young men that packed her groceries, and for the workers at Ligony Club, including the security guards. When I dared to look in her room on departure day, my heart would sink. When I saw that her room looked like she was getting ready to open a department store with all of the things she'd bought, very little of which was for her. She loved her family unconditionally and would do anything for them. Most of all, she loved life and really wanted to live forever. You heard from her Trinidadian family that she told them she was going to Carnival next year. She recently reconnected with a friend from her UE days who now lives in Ghana and announced to us that in addition to Carnival, she was also planning on going to Ghana next year. Sadly, this was not to be. Mom, rest in peace. Thank you so much for providing a wonderful example of a life well lived. We love you, and we will always miss you.
So I apologize to those of you who are up front. It may sound like I am yelling at you, but in order for me to project all the way to the back, I've been asked to raise my volume. So I apologize to you who are down front. So as you know, Jeanne loved music, and so we have a special musical tribute to her, The Holy City, performed by Rhonda Lumsden Liu.
So, see? Can you hear me? No. Let me lift it up. All right, much better, because the mic and I always have problems, but that's not true. So let me just pull your attention to the program. And in the program, you notice something. We all sing the chorus. Thank you so much. Last night I lay a-sleeping, there came a dream so fair. I stood in old Jerusalem beside the temple there. I heard the children singing, and ever as they sang, they thought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Methought the voice of angels from heaven in answer rang. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, lift up your gates and sing, Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna to your King. And then methought my dream was changed, the streets no longer rang. Hushed were the glad hosannas, the little children sang. The sun grew dark with mystery, the morn was cold and chill, as a shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill, as a shadow of a cross arose upon a lonely hill. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, hark how the angels sing, Hosanna in the highest, Hosanna to your King. And once again the scene was changed, new earth there seemed to be. I saw the holy city beside the tideless sea. The light of God was on its streets, the gates were open wide, and all who would might enter, and no one was denied. No need of moon nor stars by night, nor sun to shine by day. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. It was the new Jerusalem that would not pass away. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, sing for the night is o'er. Hosanna in the highest,
to make sure that you all do hear these words of encouragement. You're not hearing me? Louder. Okay, I can do that. So you've heard mention of the philosophy, the faith, and the way of life that Jeanne dedicated her life to. It's referred to as the science of mind. And in the science of mind, we have what we call a declaration of principles. And it's something that we recite to remember what it is we believe. Emancipation from all discord of every nature. And this goal is sure to be attained by all. Frances Jeanne Barnes knew this better than most because she believed so deeply in the teachings of this philosophy. She was forever the student. There was never a time when I just popped in on her that she wasn't ensconced in her studies. Her books are worn and torn because she reviewed them constantly with classical music playing in the background. In her last days, she let me know that she had received a diagnosis that she didn't particularly care to hear about. But that didn't deter her from doing what she believed was hers to do. She went to court on behalf of her clients. She hosted our guest musician for installation activities just a few days before her transition. And she continued to offer legal advice to those in need until the very end of her existence on this plane. Jeanne was a force for good, and her physical presence is sorely missed. But let her life be a guide for the way that you live the rest of your lives. So how does she live? She lived with passion and gusto and joy and enthusiasm. Know that our beloved Jeanne has entered into eternal life. She is among all of our ancestors, and yes, she does sleep with the angels. It is in our remembering that she lives into eternity. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, please remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the warmth of summer, remember Jeanne. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, remember her. For as long as we remember, she shall live. She will remain a part of us as long as we remember. So family, know as your beloved knew that God's unwavering love is ever present, and it is enveloping each and every one of you right here, right now. Allow God's love to fill your hearts with divine comfort. May the promise of eternal life bring hope and assurance that all is well with her soul. She has attained the ultimate goal of life. She is completely free from all discord of every nature. She rests in peace. So remember as she lived. Let's endeavor to live in that way, on purpose and with passion. And so it is. Amen. Ashe. And so now we will sing, "Great is Thy Faithfulness," and during the singing of this hymn, a love offering will be received for the missionaries of the poor, for Jeanne loved children. And the Missionaries for the Poor is one of the organizations that the Temple of Light supports in its outreach activities. So, great is thy faithfulness. Thanks for all that has been given to enable the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living to continue its healing, loving outreach work and honor simultaneously the legacy of Frances Jeanne Barnes. She loved the children, so we bless the children, and we bless all of you for your generous giving. Thanks be to God, and so it is. Amen. So you're already on your feet. If you're not, maybe I can entice you to rise. If Jeanne touched your life in a positive way, please stand. If she was a friend to you in an hour of need, please stand if you are able. If she brought joy to your life, please stand. And while we are standing, let's send her out with a standing ovation that she deserves for a life well lived. Yes, you may be seated. Thank you for that. We want to send her out in the way that she is so deserving. And so now I share with you the prayer of release. So as I speak this word, the soul of Frances Jeanne Barnes, to know that the Lord her shepherd, she shall not want for life, light or love. God's will for eternity maketh her to lie down in green pastures of an abundant life. She is even now being led beside the still waters of peace. She is restored to an awareness of her true self and led in the pathway of her true nature. Yea, though she walks through the valley of the shadow, she will know it to be only a shadow and will fear no evil. For the one omnipresence and power of God is even now with her to teach and to guide her. God has already prepared her new expression, her knowing of this complete, and this cup of good overflows with her as she lives on in perpetuity. Surely goodness and loving kindness surrounds her now and forever. Physical death has come, and Jeanne's spirit is free. As the eagle is freed from its cage and soars to higher heights, so her soul is freed from the home of her physical body, and she rises and returns unto her Father's house. She will dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. And so it is. And so now I'll close out with a benediction and pray in the way that we pray. First, we recognize that there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is good. That life was Jeanne's life. That's my life. That's your life right here and right now. And God came so that we might have life and have it more abundant. So as you leave here today, maintain those memories of Jeanne. You will always have a smile on your face, presence, for an opportunity for me to learn more about this amazing woman. Go in peace. Peace be with you always. And so it is. Amen and ashe. So there is immediately following this service a repast. The information is in your program at the very back. It is at the Curfew Place at 5 Shallowfield Road. So please join us as we continue this celebration of life. Thank you all for coming. God bless you.
Now leave it just so. And find out from the lady here.
This has been an XMalcom Media production. For more information and bookings, call us at 1-876-369-6604 or check us out on YouTube at XMalcom Media or Instagram and Facebook at XMalcom Media.